Hi, everyone. How's it going? Welcome to the ESPN Esports Wolf, and welcome to the Eco. This is our new Counter-Strike Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern after Flashpoint and ESL Pro League competition in North America. Today, we're going to be having Dan Fiden, who is the president of Cloud9 and a director of Flashpoint, on the show. Then later, we're going to be having Fallen, who is the captain of Made in Brazil, MIBR, also on the show. It's been a busy week in Counter-Strike and also just in FPS in general. This week, we saw several different people, including some Counter-Strike players, participate in a Valorant boot camp over the weekend. Obviously, it's the new Riot Games first-person shooter. It seems like feedback is pretty good all around. Full disclosure, we had a couple of different ESPN people participate in this. I was not among them, so I don't personally have feedback to give. But everything I heard was resoundingly very positive. So I'm curious to sort of see how Valorant does in all of FPS, including in Counter-Strike. But later in the show, we're going to be talking to Dan Fiden, who's the Cloud9 president and a Flashpoint director. Something that's been going on in Flashpoint over the last couple of weeks is the situation with FunPlus, Phoenix, and Heroic. Something I want to pick Dan's brain on and sort of hear it from the inside. FunPlus Phoenix obviously entered Counter-Strike to participate in Flashpoint as a partner team. They were said to acquire the Heroic roster, and then ES3 Tag, the Danish player, ended up moving to Astralis and signing a contract that would move him to Astralis in the summer. That seemed like it made the deal fall apart. We then saw that Swole Patrol was going to play in that place as part of FunPlus Phoenix. Then we saw that again, that Swole Patrol, the Captain Cooper said that he was going to, or that they were not playing for FunPlus Phoenix. And Bad News Bears, another North American team, is now in that spot. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks for Flashpoint and for FBX. And among that also, we had the whole situation with the coronavirus as Flashpoint started its first week offline in studio with all the players. I spoke to Kent Wakeford, who is one of Dan's peers, about what they did to sort of combat that, from having a nurse on site to check various different temperatures and to make sure that everybody was safe. And then we saw them have to move to an online format also. So it's been interesting sort of seeing Counter-Strike combat the coronavirus. ESL Pro League obviously also moved online. So yeah, we're going to have Dan to talk, but just I want to address the elephant in the room a little bit. I know that some of the people in the chat are probably seeing some of our content for the first time, and they may not know us. They may not know that we cover Counter-Strike. This is something that I've heard a lot over the last couple of years. We're actually huge fans of CS. I am in particular, and our producer, Thomas, who is also here producing the show remotely for us.
Hello.
Is a former Counter-Strike semi-professional. And so, we have people here that really like CS, and we're really looking forward to bringing more CS content over the next few years. And I think that this show is really the beginning of something special. So I hope to have a lot of the Counter-Strike luminaries on this show. And that is what this show is. This is going to be a 30 to 45-minute show every week. We're going to be bringing in people from all parts of Counter-Strike, whether that be players like Fallen or executives like Dan, or various different people across the scene to talk about their experiences. For those that are unfamiliar with me, I have been an esports journalist for about 5.5 years now. I've covered a lot of different games, including CS over the years. You may know me from League of Legends. You may know me from other games like Overwatch. But I'm a huge Counter-Strike fan, and I'm really happy to be doing this. We are going to transition, I think, into our conversation with Dan Fiden, the president of Cloud9 and the director of Flashpoint. And we will be welcoming Dan onto the show, who I believe we have right now. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? It's good to be here. I can't believe it. It's such an honor to be your first guest.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know about luminary, but I'm a hangabout.
You're an appropriate first guest though, because Flashpoint just finished up second week of competition. So I do want to just ask for people who aren't necessarily familiar with you. Obviously, many people familiar with Flashpoint and C9, but what is your role relative to both of those organizations?
Yeah, so with Cloud9, I'm the president of the company. I started out working with Jack in 2016 as an investor. I led the seed round in the company, and then I joined as president, just kind of helping out with mostly business side things, kind of investor management, publisher, league management, but I think just try and kind of jump into fires where they exist. And with Flashpoint, I was one of the kind of executives that work across the group of founding teams that has been helping out organize things as we founded the company. There are there are a number of teams that are kind of founders, and we're all co-equal partners in the business. And there are a few of us who have kind of raised our hands and do a little bit more work here and there on certain areas of things. From time to time, I'm one of them.
You and I have spoken before about sort of the decision to start Flashpoint. But I just in brief, I mean, what was the sort of background to starting this own team-owned league in Counter-Strike in a model that's not necessarily existed, at least recently, but was tried with something like the PA in the past?
Yeah, so I think that Counter-Strike is a unique game within esports. It has amazing viewership, this incredible history. It's tremendously watchable, great players with great personalities, great rivalries. It's just a really, really awesome esport. Unfortunately, as awesome as the esport is, the business of Counter-Strike for team organizations has been really, really bad. It's been one of the worst. And so as I think the entire industry changed, and especially the team side of the esports industry changed, we felt like, and we weren't alone, there were some other teams, we felt like there was an opportunity to try and do something different. We had access to basically the money to be able to try and found something ourselves that has just structurally different economics, and also we're trying to have a very different approach to the content, a very different kind of tone, competitive format, and to just do something that we don't feel like has been done in Counter-Strike before, in the hope that it delivers a really great product that the core Counter-Strike fan loves, and also creates a different economic relationship between the teams and the players and the league itself that allows it to be a little bit more economically sustainable.
So I think a lot of people will ask this that have been paying attention. There was that blog post from ESL several months ago that Cloud9 and MIBR both declined to participate in the ESL Pro League. I also think that there are a lot of people give you criticism for not having as competitive a teams as ESL Pro League, obviously, who have Astralis and Na'Vi and many other top teams. So now with the league moving online, MIBR is competing in ESL Pro League as well as Flashpoint. And so I guess the question I would have for you is, obviously you can't predict the coronavirus situation several months ago, but now do you see a world where you would have done both as Cloud9?
Yeah, so participation in the individual competitions is a decision that I just have to be honest is primarily driven by the general manager of our Counter-Strike team, the players, and folks like Jack. When I weigh in on those decisions, I generally will say to the players and the staff of the team that I feel like playing in more events is not what's important. Playing in the events that are both competitively most interesting to the players and economically most viable for the business is what's important. And I think historically there hasn't been enough space in the average kind of Counter-Strike team or player schedule to be able to really focus on some things that I think are really important. Number one is like an actual personal life, a sustainable life for a player. You're going to burn out. You're not going to be successful long-term if you're on the road, 300 days a year and in a constant state of jet lag, I don't think. And two, you've got to be able to kind of really practice in a practice and training environment away from competition somewhat, I think, to get better as a player. And so allowing themselves the time to be able to do that and not just chase every prize pool that's out there, I think is important. if we had known, then what we know now, it's difficult for me to say whether we would have competed in EPL, but I do think this is a temporary situation. I don't think that in Flashpoint 2, I certainly hope that in Flashpoint 2 we're not still playing online, and I would imagine that the folks from ESL and the teams that are in EPL also hope that they can move back to LAN as quickly as possible. And as soon as you're in a LAN format, it's just logistically impossible to play in more than one competition like this kind of concurrently.
So with that being said, though, how has Flashpoint been handling the coronavirus situation from your perspective, other than obviously moving very obvious? I'm sort of curious what else has been done behind the scenes from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, this is not unique for Flashpoint. I think that really every esport is going through some variation of the same thing right now. It's been incredibly difficult, right? We have a team that we work with at Face It, who's a partner in our league and handles the kind of broadcast production and league ops. They have been working with the founding teams to coordinate with obviously the studio staff, the league ops staff, and all of the players and the CSPPA to ensure that everyone feels like their concerns are being heard and that we're doing the best that we can do to ensure that everyone is as safe as they can be in a situation like this, but that we also take the responsibility that we think we have to produce content that we think is, more important than ever right now, and to continue to deliver that content that we think that fans want, but to also make it as kind of to maintain as much competitive integrity as we can, even in an online environment. So, we instituted an incredibly strict set of policies within the studio. We had medical staff on site every day when we were in the studio. When we moved to online play, the team has been engaged really closely with the Face It team has been engaged really closely with the individual game, the competitive teams, ensuring that we're minimizing the amount of disruption as a result of like internet infrastructure issues that I think are starting to come up as a result of everyone working from home right now. It's been a difficult time, but I think that the team that works for Flashpoint has done an amazing job, has produced really great content in an incredibly difficult and stressful circumstance. We kind of feel like this is as difficult a first season of a new competition as there could be. And we're navigating through it, I think, pretty well overall. And so hopefully everything's going to feel a little bit easier from here on out as we continue with Flashpoint.
Content seems to be a pretty big focus of Flashpoint for you all.
Yeah.
You have, you mentioned it there several times, but also it's very clear with the types of people you've gone and hired. Obviously, you have Monte Cristo, someone who it comes from games. He's not done CS before this, before participating and being involved with Cloud9 and Flashpoint. You have Thorin and Moses and Anders and similar, and you have sort of the who's who on the Counter-Strike content creation front. So I like that being said, how has that been impacted from, no longer being able to sort of have the level of access with players in studio and everything else?
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually. Like we've seen some things and I don't know how permanent these trends will be, but I was talking to Monte Cristo the other day and we were just kind of looking at some of the viewership numbers for Flashpoint. We had actually noticed during one of the broadcast days that viewership increased during the post-game show, which is pretty unique actually within a competitive esports broadcast. I think that the decision to kind of partner with people like Thorin and Monty and Semler from the very beginning has really been a core principle for what we want to accomplish at Flashpoint. We feel like people like that are the people who really kind of invented what esports content is. And to try to take those people and take the kind of creative control away from them in favor of some, highly priced executive producer who comes from the NFL or something like that, and to try and kind of turn esports into a traditional sports broadcast, maybe is missing the point a little bit, missing the core of what's interesting about esports. And so instead of doing that, what we heard from that talent was that sometimes they felt like they weren't really, being taken full, listened to fully in some previous projects they worked on. So we just said, we're going to bring a much larger set of resources to you guys, but we're really going to let you guys call the shots on what this content looks like. And I think that because of the coronavirus situation, because we've had to take players out of the studio and them playing online, in a strange way, it's actually forced us to lean on them even more than we were already leaning on them. And I think that folks like Monty and Thorin have really kind of held the overall product together tonally and from a content perspective. So I've actually been like incredibly thankful that we made the decision that we did to bring them in as early and as deeply as we have. I'm not joking at all to say that I don't think that we would be we'd be in a very different, much worse place right now if it weren't for that talent team.
So one of the things that's been going on in Flashpoint the past 2 weeks is what's going on with Fun Plus, and the roster now has been changed 3 times after Astralis signing one of the heroic players to a contract that would activate in the summer. I have a couple different questions on this situation, and I know there has been communication about why these changes are being made publicly, and so I kind of want to pick your brain and get your thoughts.
Sure.
The first is when you look at the teams that are in Flashpoint, it makes sense how a lot of them are connected, right? Almost all of the 7 teams of the original 7 partner teams in Flashpoint are the 6 prior to MB, but including MB are in the Overwatch League, sans Dignitas.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that there are many executive level meetings where you all see each other and have various discussions, not just pertaining to Overwatch, but pertaining to other things in those types of settings. So it makes sense why those people are there together. Fun Plus was sort of out of left field. Obviously, a world-renowned organization, a world championship organization in League of Legends. But it's not so strange because you're a former executive at Fun Plus, the parent org of that group. So first, I want to ask the question: how did they get involved in a Counter-Strike league after never being in CS?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that in any business, right? You when you're as old as I am, you tend to work across a bunch of different companies, and if you're lucky enough, you can build some pretty good relationships over that sequence of kind of moves in your career. And so some of the folks who are now involved with Fun Plus, I've worked with in the past. When they first got into League of Legends, their attitude, or what they kind of told me their attitude was, is they really just wanted to focus on doing a few things well, and until they felt like they could kind of execute capably on running a League of Legends team, they didn't really want to move into a 100 other esports. And I think that's a pretty logical perspective. A little bit to my surprise, to be honest with you, they were able to win Worlds after, I think, 2 years of running a League of Legends team. And it was just an incredibly impressive thing they were able to do. And so after that, as we were putting together Flashpoint, we were, from the very beginning, folks like Ari Siegel and Lurpus and Kent and I spent a lot of time thinking about what are the types of ownership groups that we wanted to get involved. And one of the things that we prioritized was we really have always seen this as a global league. We didn't want it to be the biggest league. We didn't want to have the most number of teams in Flashpoint, but we wanted to have a broad geographic kind of distribution and reach and kind of fan base. And China, for lots of really obvious reasons, was in very interesting territory for us to take a look at. Last year, I think you saw a lot of really, really interesting growth in Counter-Strike viewership and player-based numbers in mainland China. And so as we were kind of thinking through who would be a good partner in China, that's when the Fun Plus conversation started. Their involvement in the league, and I think this will kind of dovetail into the next set of questions that I'm guessing you have, was pretty last minute, but part of that was driven by the fact that the virus hit in mainland China relatively early in the year and was quite disruptive to kind of all of their operations. Literally, the executive team that I was working with on getting their documents and everything done were like stuck away from home. One of them was in Europe, one of them was in California, and they were with their families, and they literally kind of weren't in a position to be able to return from Europe and North America to mainland China because of the kind of quarantines that were happening after Chinese New Year. So everything was a little, janky, honestly, getting that process moving forward. But they ultimately decided that what they wanted to do was to kind of take a couple of folks from their team who were already stuck outside of China, get them into Europe, and to do a whole bunch of meetings with a whole bunch of European Counter-Strike organizations and rosters to figure out whether they could acquire a roster in time for season 1. And that's really what led up to, the relatively last minute deal that they were hoping to do with Heroic. If that makes sense. I mean, if it felt like it was all happening fairly last minute, it was, and I think a lot of that was a result of, them being in this slightly strange situation, being stuck away from home, if that makes sense.
So I do want to ask, obviously the Heroic roster competed in the first week of under the Fun Plus banner, but it seems like with how fragile the deal is and fell apart in the way that it has reportedly been, it seems like that deal wasn't actually done before the Heroic roster competed under Fun Plus Phoenix. Is that right? Did they play under FBX while not being signed to FBX?
Yeah. So, and again, this is my understanding of the situation. I was in, obviously, the contract between Fun Plus and Heroic. What I can tell you is it's fairly customary when one organization is acquiring, the roster of another organization, either one player contract or a number of player contracts, there will be a deal that's done that essentially says, okay, Team A is going to pay Team B $1 million. And then you sign that deal, but that deal is contingent on the players in question signing new contracts with the new organization. It is in some territories legal to actually assign a contract for a player from one org to the other, but I think it's much more common to essentially say, okay, the players, the organization is going to allow the players to negotiate a new contract with the new organization. The players need to sign that new contract. If that process fails for any reason, then the whole buyout fails. Does that make sense? And so my understanding of the situation is that that deal was done with Heroic, and there was such a high degree of confidence that the Heroic ownership made the decision, and the players obviously agreed, that they should fly to LA and start playing, because it seemed like getting the player contracts done was going to be a trivial matter. And then again, this is kind of just what I understand of the situation. What they thought, what Fun Plus and Heroic thought would be a trivial issue, turned into a major issue, because one of the players was, didn't end up signing a contract with FPX, and that ultimately resulted in the deal between FPX and Heroic falling through.
Do you think that it would have, the interesting thing here is that the governing body for Point is a set of teams and team directors or team executives like your Kent Waker from Jinji and Ari Sagel from etc. Do you think that you all could have done a better job at vetting that situation and sort of where they were at prior to letting that roster compete in Flashpoint to ensure that we wouldn't be in the position we're in now?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And so, we saw as a result, Swole Patrol was invited and they were going to compete under the FPX banner at one point, but not actually be a part of F. Then Cooper said that they actually weren't, they had no relationship with Fun Plus. And then we saw them replaced by Bad News Bears.
Yeah.
What has gone on in the past? Like now we have had teams signed under this spot.
Yeah. So again, I can tell you that I do have a little bit more into actually the replacement process for FPX than I did in the actual heroic kind of conversations. A couple of things happened. The heroic roster was in LA playing, and it seemed as though that deal was done. At least it's what I was told by the FPX management. Concurrent to that, the FPX management was actually able to return to mainland China, and they'd been kind of away for months. And so this guy Brett, who was handling things for them, is kind of the main point of contact, got on a plane and like 85 hours later actually was back online in Shanghai. He had to go through quarantine and all of this stuff. During that period of time, that's really when all of this stuff kind of happened with, again, I don't really have any visibility into what the specifics are, but one of the players signing with Astralis, they understandably very quickly needed a replacement roster to play in their slot. And so I just some of the other folks involved with the league just kind of made whatever introductions we could for Fun FPX to rosters that we knew were based in North America and may be available to play. And there was a large number of rosters that we contacted. Bad News Bears was contacted at the same time. Soul Patrol was contacted, and there were multiple other rosters contacted. The FPX guys decided to go with Swole Patrol. What there seems to be some miscommunication. The Swole Patrol folks were told that they were playing in FPX's slot. They were going to be filling in as the FPX roster. And once they actually committed to play, then this negotiating point, what I was told that was the negotiating point by the FPX folks, basically the Swole guys said, we don't want to play under the name FPX anymore. We want it to be some combination of FPX and Swole. And there were some money conversations in there as well. I don't know any of the details, but as a result of that, they couldn't come to an agreement. I think the Swole guys seem to be super nice. I understand their point of view, but there just wasn't a lot of time for negotiation and debate over what the brand name was going to be that they were going to play under. And so FPX decided to go back with Bad News Bears, who I think at the time were ranked higher in NA anyway.
Got it. Well, we have to let you go because we have Mr. Fallen waiting for us on the line.
He's more important.
No, that's okay. We really appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, wait, I asked Twitter if they could tell me some questions to ask you before I go, and I have my favorite one that I got was from Ari at Immortals. Will you answer it?
Oh God, I can't. I saw that one. I cannot.
Top 5 sources. Come on, Jacob. You got to say it.
I can't answer that one. I can't answer that one. But nonetheless, I appreciate your effort.
Thanks, man. Good luck with this show. I'm super glad you're doing it.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on. Best of luck to you, and I'm sure we will have you on again to locked in, and hopefully all of us are out of quarantine. That would be the hope. Yeah. So. So we will let you go. We appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.
Be safe.
You too.
Bye.
Yeah, so that's everybody. That was Dan Fiden, the he's president C9, or he is the president of C9, one of the directors of Flashpoint. We are super glad to have him on the show. I believe my camera needs to be resized right now, but that's okay. We're hanging in there. Thank you so much to Dan for coming on. It's interesting, right? Because from a third-party perspective looking in on this, it seems like these Heroic players, the Danish players that were playing as a part of Heroic, are now not going to be playing in anything at all. And that's really unfortunate because there's not anything, because of coronavirus, there's nothing on the calendar right now that is happening till the end of ESL Pro League and Flashpoint. A lot of the in-person events, ESL Rio, etc., have been moved. And there's a chance that we can't see Cadian and squad play until their roster actually changes and S-Tag goes to Astralis. It's an odd situation for everyone involved, and I really feel for those players because they didn't deserve any of this, right? I think that any of those buyouts falling through, S-Tag, that's his decision to move on. I think that there should have probably been fail-safes put in place to make things different. And I don't know. I think that the entire situation could have been handled a lot differently, and I kind of wish that Flashpoint would have been able to confirm that before letting them play, even if it meant a delay of games. Welcome back to the Eco. For those unfamiliar, this is the new ESPN Counter-Strike Global Offensive show. We are going to be joined. He is on the line, Fallen, the captain of Made in Brazil, the Counter-Strike Global Offensive team. Fallen, welcome to the Eco.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So I wanted to talk to you. Obviously, many Brazilian fans in the chat after your tweet. We much appreciate everyone coming to the chat. So first of all, I wanted to talk to you about last week you put out a tweet longer about sort of the decision to play in the ESL Pro League while also competing in Flashpoint. So, you talked about the ESL the ESL World Rankings and their relevance relative to the other events on the calendar, like ESL One Cologne and IEM Katowice next year. So first, I want to ask you sort of what was the decision making behind competing in both EPL and in Flashpoint?
During the last years, we tried to play a lot of leagues at the same time. I think like last years we played ESL and Faceit leagues, and the Counter-Strike scenario has been changing a lot because every team recognized that playing two leagues at once, it's extremely hard. Like you have so many games to play. It's hard to really study for all your opponents. It might be a little bit overplaying. So it's been a kind of a common sense to really play only one league. And we decided this year to go with Flashpoint League. That was decided with our organization, and we're happy about it. We know it's a league that it's starting. It's the first edition, but has a lot of good promising things for the future. I want to help grow it. And the fact that coronavirus came in and popped in kind of canceled all the events for the whole semester. And then we just got stuck in a situation where you only had Flashpoint to play. And that's pretty much the situation for every single team in the world right now. Like they don't have many tournaments to play, of course. But then we got the chance to play Pro League. We got told afterwards that they would go online, that there would be only a North American season. And then it made sense for us to really go for another tournament because we need a lot of games to grow. We're always looking for the major this year. We know they're going to have a major in Brazil. This is going to be the most important tournament for us. And playing a lot of games is going to help the team grow more and more. So the decision was basically, let's try to have more official games. This way we're going to be able to grow faster. And that's how it's going so far.
I want to ask you a little bit about the state of the team where you're at right now. Obviously, you were a part of this team during the Luminosity and SK Gaming days where you were one of the best teams in the world. You've had some struggles, though, over the past year to sort of maintain that consistency. What, looking forward to now what is in November, playing in your home country of Brazil, in Rio, what do you think you have to do to get back to the point of being one of the top competitive teams come the Rio Major?
Wish I knew the exact answer for that, right? It's going to be extremely hard. I mean, every single team in the world is trying to get ready for this competition. And to be honest, right now, we're not even considered to be one of the favorites to play and win there. But at the same point, it's going to be one of the biggest tournaments for us ever. Playing in Brazil for a major is going to be insane. It's really going to be a highlight for my career. So I'm going to make sure that I do well there with my team. And it's going to be amazing. But for us to get there in the way we want to be, there needs to be a lot of growth for the team as individuals, as a team. And I'm trying to do everything I can to perform better, to understand the game better, and to help my teammates to play better as well. I'm trying to keep a very positive mentality because that's what we need when we're trying to get better, trying to really become something else. And we're approaching the right way. I think with time we can make it happen, but nothing's guaranteed. Like we have more than hundreds and hundreds of teams trying to be the best in the world, and it's not easy for any of them. You really have to get the right mix of things, the right mix of ideas, the right mix of players, and sometimes even a little bit of lucky in order to get where we want.
So other than the reps, you mentioned in your Twit Longer post about the ESL World Rankings and their relevance to ESL One Cologne and to IEM Katowice. And you seem to be pretty unhappy with the ESL World Rankings and sort of their position relative to the Pro Tour. So I want to ask, we've already heard you talk about that, but I want to ask, like, what would you do? How would you make rankings better? Would you have a third-party organization do them? Would you have, Flashpoint, ESL Pro League, and other tournament organizers come together for one unified ranking? How would you make the rankings better in your head?
The way I see it, Counter-Strike has always been an open game, which means Valve has never really taken care of the game, just like League of Legends did, for example. They never really controlled all the scene, and which I think is good. I actually prefer this way. I think it gives us a lot more freedom, a lot more opportunities for new teams to come up. I actually prefer the Counter-Strike system instead of League of Legends, for example. But Counter-Strike has been evolving for many years. A lot of good companies have been working with the game. You have in the recent past ESL. You had Faceit doing a lot of good tournaments. You have Star Ladder and all those tournament organizers. And the fact is, at the end, that's my take, at least from it. All of them would really like to really control the scene overall, like to be able to really provide the best games, to be able to really be the only tournament organizer holding all the stakes. And I think at the end, this is very bad for the scene because we cannot let this happen, right? Because that's how CS has grown over all the years. But I have a lot of freedom. I have a lot of different tournament organizers putting their work in. And when we have one of the biggest tournament organizers having a ranking on their own, like it is with SL, it can be a little bit dangerous because it might not seem at first, but if another company doesn't start doing so well, if they start grabbing more teams for their competitions because they want to start thinking about another competition that's going to happen in the future, then you kind of have a problem there and a conflict of interest because a team can decide to play this tournament just because they're looking to play another bigger tournament at the very future, right? And I know it's all business, I know it's how it works, but at the end, we don't want to have only one company really taking care of everything. So when it comes to rankings, there's also another discussion that is making sure that every team keep having, stay with opportunities to show up. That's how LG, for example, even back on the days Kidstar showed up, we had the chance to play some competitions and then got invited for other ones, and then we started showing up ourselves and got a chance to become a better team, right? And that's how we eventually became a top team in the world. And that's important. You never know who's going to be at the top in many years from here. We need to make sure that the ecosystem keeps the qualifiers going on, making sure that the distribution is fair, making sure that all the teams have a chance to really grow up from where they are. And on my opinion, you asked what I would do differently. I think we definitely need to take a third-part ranking as official for all competitions. If Valve is not going to step in and do their own rankings, I think we should use HLTV. I think it's the most fair thing because they're not doing tournaments for themselves. They don't really have a matter. Don't really care who are doing the tournaments because they're covering all. So I would be pretty happy with a ranking like HLTV being used by everyone.
On that note, I want to ask about sort of whether you think playing in ESL Pro League sort of devalues Flashpoint a little bit, because one of the biggest criticisms of Flashpoint is that many of the teams in Flashpoint aren't very good. And all the best teams are in ESL Pro League, Navi, Astralis, Liquid, etc. So do you think that by competing in both, you are sort of the endorsement that you've given to Flashpoint by MIBR being a part of it, do you think that in any way hurts Flashpoint by playing in ESL Pro League?
I think in the end, yes, a little bit. It's a little bit. It's true. When we commanded to play Flashpoint, I think every team there was expecting just to have those teams attending only this tournament. But I think it's understandable with all the coronavirus situation and the fact that from the teams that are currently playing on the Flashpoint League, we are one of the teams who actually could be playing other leagues on a different tier, for example. So I think it's understandable, but at the same point, it's not something we're looking for in the future. What we want is to be playing on only one league for reasons that I already said before. It's a lot of games to be playing. You don't really want to be committing to 2 online leagues at the same time. So we really endorse what Flashpoint is doing, and we hope that we help it grow to a point where better teams can join. And it's tough to really play on that business part. It's not my part. I'm just a player in the end, but I know a little bit of how things work. Of course, Flashpoint tried to bring a lot of different teams. They had a lot of different conversations with a lot of teams, but in the end, not many of them really wanted to give it a try outside ESL arms. And it's even if this, by some point of view, it could be considered better conditions in terms of the league itself. So it might take some time. Of course, ESL is doing their job for so many years. They do a pretty good job. I really enjoy ESL work. I really enjoy playing their tournaments. I think they're very good at what they do. But at the other hand, in the other point of view, you have all those teams who are trying to make Counter-Strike viable in terms of the business, in terms of really having a return of investment, in terms of really making sense on where they're spending their money. And that's why making a good and structured league is important and vital for all the teams, because they need to make it viable for many, many years from here, not only thinking about the next months.
So I'll end this interview with a question from OffieScript in our chat, who asked, in your opinion, Fallen, where did you all go wrong in today's game against Furia?
Oh, today's game was pretty tough. I think we didn't play well on the T side on train. Strategically wise, I think we did a poor job there, and that's a little bit on me. So could have done a better job there. On the CT side, we could have got the pistol to kind of start a comeback, but unluckily he had a molly for the bomb, kind of one up 4v1 with a Molotov. We kind of have time to really jump in the fire and try to defuse it, but it didn't happen the way we wanted. So we lost the pistol round, and then the chance to come back really got very difficult because they had 14-5 at that point. Then we went to Inferno. I think we have a pretty solid game there. City side, we do a pretty good job trying to understand how they like to play, and adapt a little bit of our defense for it. Played a super good CT side, and I think we went to win all the T side half afterwards, kind of giving them back what they did to us on train. And then we went to Mirage, got a pretty good start. I think we're winning 5-0. Made some mistakes on the two next rounds, which kind of bring them back to the game. So we ended up winning the half on the T side, but not as good as we could have won. And then on the T side, there were some close moments that could have given us a couple rounds, but we failed to do any points. So in the end, I think strategically speaking, we didn't do a very good job there as well on the T side. So that's something to really take on. And for me as a captain, I need to learn a little bit on what to do on against this kind of defensive they were playing, because there are for sure better answers for it than we all just played today.
Fallen, before we let you go, we see lots of Portuguese in the chat, so I'll open the floor to you. Anything you would like to say to the Portuguese fans in the chat?
In Portuguese?
Yeah, go for it.
Fala, galera. Obrigado a todos que torceram pelo jogo hoje. Não foi o resultado que queríamos, mas a evolução continua. Estamos trabalhando bastante e aos poucos espero que a gente consiga chegar lá onde todos queremos estar, que é no topo. Obrigado pelo suporte contínuo aí. Tamo junto sempre, galera.
Fallen, thank you very much. For everyone else, this has been The Eco, the new ESPN Counter-Strike show. Tune in every single Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. We will be back with other players from other teams, from other executives from other teams, and we look forward to having you here in our chat. So please stay tuned in, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much, Jacob.